and who, you know, in the end killed himself when he was losing the case at that point. But in this case, what's happening is the British are in control of this thing, and Obama's nothing but a British puppet. He's also insane. And its significance is that as President of the United States, with his insanity and the power he's using with the direction of the British, he could cause World War III, thermonuclear World War III. So if we don't remove him from power, as it stands now, here we got two options. You have to think of what's the British option. The British option is if they can't win it any other way, they are now prepared to order through the President of the United States the launching as of our submarine fleet in the Pacific to launch the greatest capability in thermonuclear warfare that exists on this planet. Without the United States under control of the British, under Obama's control, that could not happen. Therefore, we have to get Obama out, because the most likely way to save this nation, if we continue to tolerate Obama, if he's continued to be president, they're not going to wait for the next election of the United States. The danger comes now. We don't know the exact date, but we're approached that point. Now, two things are, the British have two objectives. Now, the British know what, command knows exactly what they're doing when they're prompting the United States to unleash forces such as the submarine thermonuclear capability in the Pacific and also the Atlantic. They know what they're doing. They are obviously not anticipating a pleasant trip with that. They would prefer to use the threat, as Hitler did in Germany to the Germans, to use the threat.
Mr. LaRouche, stay there. That was a short segment. Long one coming up. This is key. That's what I wanted to ask you when we get back. Why are they openly announcing that they're moving most of the forces to diminish the Chinese? The Chinese, as you know, their president has now said, prepare for war with the United States. Incredible, when they hold most of our debt. They're going towards war on every front. I know the British model, divide and conquer. We'll be right back. There's a bunch of news I haven't gotten to. Twitter, Facebook, Google, they're all announcing they're going to go along with governments to censor. I saw where now government's going to ask them, don't let people Twitter about police roadblocks or about police checkpoints or police speed traps. Well, what do you think a CB is? You know, breaker 19, let me know if there's any smoky on up ahead. I mean, it's good. We're allowed to talk to each other. You don't have prior constraint on us talking to each other. But going back to our guest, you can call them if you ever want to get a copy of their intelligence report that comes out on a routine basis. Great magazine, 800-929-7566 or LaRouchePack.com. There's also other websites they have as well, but LaRouchePack.com. And he joins us now. Okay, so we're going to break, and we were talking about understanding the city of London, the Venetian black nobility, vestigial remnant of the Roman Empire and Byzantine system that survived and was taken into Europe and then finally settling after, I guess, the Templars' purge in London. And Scotland, for that matter, but in London, in the city of London, the city within the city, one of those, again, cities on its own, sovereigns saying that they're above everyone. What is their mindset so people can understand it, and what this great game is, and why do they have the U.S. military openly menacing the communist Chinese, who our own government has helped give the MIRV technology and ICBM Long March technology to? What is this great game?
Well, the game includes the elimination of the Russia, China, India, and so forth. The immediate target for weapons attack is from the United States if it's working under the British direction, which Obama represents. In that case, then the target is principally against Russia, China, the other leading nations of Asia, including India. Those are the targets. Now, the British prefer not to take the risk of the repercussions of a full-scale thermonuclear attack on that part of the world and any other places they think is a threat to them. They would prefer to have us sign a treaty agreement with the British Empire, that is with Wall Street and London, and thus submit to the dictatorship of those powers. That way the British would get everything. It would be a bit slower than winning a thermonuclear war, but they would accept that because they don't want to be killed too. They just want the people they want to kill to be killed. So therefore we have two options. If we allow this president, Obama, to continue in the presidency, we are doomed, because the full repercussion of launching of a thermonuclear war. Our military are not guilty. Our military, our Joint Chiefs of Staff and people like that, and people in the intelligence community are of the same persuasion. They are fighting like the devil, and so far have helped to prevent this from happening. It was supposed to happen soon after the killing of Gaddafi. But our best military people were a key factor in preventing us, and some of our intelligence community were a key factor within the limits they have of power in this system, have delayed this thing so far. But we're now coming to the point that the British are getting desperate, and they're now pushing hard against Russia, against China, for total submission.
And, sir, I want to be clear, because neocons and others write articles about myself, and they say, Jones doesn't want war with the Russians and Chinese. He must work for them. I mean, my family on both sides came over on the Mayflower. On my dad's side, the captain of the Mayflower, Battle of San Jacinto, Texas founding. How dare these banker operatives, these people that are helping sell out our Bill of Rights, our Constitution. I know you come from an old American family as well. How dare these type of people claim that because we don't want nuclear war and we don't want 30,000 drones in the skies and secret arrest of citizens, the system is showing us it's a bunch of tyrants. And then if we don't want war and conflict, we're traitors. No, they are the traitors. And is it not treason when they're launching wars under UN authority? They're not going to Congress. They're saying, we'll arrest citizens and kill citizens. I mean, I saw Lindsey Graham on TV. He goes, yeah, of course the NDAA is for citizens. We won't just arrest you. We'll kill you without a trial. I mean, they are trying to come out in the open and hide their tyranny in plain view and appeal to authority. And it's so real. You talk about nuclear war, all the elites, as you know, sir. But for the audience, you're not hyping this. They're building bunkers. The Chinese are saying, prepare for nuclear war. The Russians are threatening, saying, don't go into Syria. I mean, I've not seen rhetoric like this even at the height of the Cold War. I mean, it's crazy, and it's like World War I or World War II, but now we got nukes and bioweapons. We're sleepwalking into oblivion and have just gotten so used to it, and people are watching football games. It has that same eeriness that I saw historians write about before the Great Wars. I know you were in World War II. So, I mean, is that what your gut is telling you and your intellect as well, sir?
I'm saying that the problem lies with our responsibility as Americans. Our responsibility here is to throw this President Obama out of office. Because if we're not willing to do that, we are not going to survive.
You're saying that's a signal to the world that there's big changes and the power structure is being reversed.
The point is the British Empire, which controls Wall Street. Remember, Wall Street has been from the beginning a British faction. Most of our presidents, I could go through them.
Well, they set up CFR in New York to control it on record. It's all British intelligence.
Sure it is. But the point is, if the problem is the killing of Kennedy and the entry into a long war of about 10 years in Indochina was intentional, and Kennedy opposed that, and he was killed to get him out of the way to get that war unclosed. That war destroyed an impetus which existed under Kennedy for projects which would rebuild this nation in a way which we would today envy. What has happened, we have essentially 3 generations of people who do not know, as adult experience, they do not know what the United States represented under Eisenhower and Kennedy. And of course, also Roosevelt before. They don't know that. They've been terrorized by what a succession of wars. Wars all over. The officer of our system.
Well, that's my next point, sir. All the top brass has come out and said a war on Iran is insane. Most of the Israeli people, the head of Mossad was fired a year ago because he wouldn't go along with it. I mean, this is so insane. The way I've heard it described by top CIA analyst Ray McGovern is it is a roll of the dice. And there isn't a good number on the die. It just runs from bad to worse. You know, a 6 is total nuclear war. A 1 is doubling of gas prices, regional war, terror attacks, economies going under. But that's the neo-feudalistic British imperial model. And they say it's a post-industrial world. They're digging in. They've got seed vaults. They're building bunkers. I mean, the establishment, as you know, is acting like they're getting ready for World War III.
Absolutely. But the point is, I look at it from the standpoint, complaining doesn't get you anywhere. What do we do about it?
What do we do then?
And the point is, we have to arouse the American people in a different way than we usually do. You know, like what happened after Pearl Harbor. We had a situation where Roosevelt knew that the attack on Pearl Harbor was coming, but he also knew that most of the Americans would not fight the Japanese under those conditions and others. So therefore, we did not act to defend Pearl Harbor, even though we know it was happening, because the naval and army forces commanding the position in Pearl Harbor, for example, were not going to do anything to stop it. So therefore, Roosevelt was mobilized to mobilize us to war, because he knew under those conditions of an actual direct attack on the United States by Japan would mobilize the American forces. And I was in New York at that time when this happened, that Sunday. And I was walking across from Midtown Manhattan, from east side to west side, for a business appointment. And as I walked into this place, I got this hotel I went to meet my people. I heard the voice of Roosevelt coming over the phone. The reports on Roosevelt coming over. And I looked at what happened to the people, and in this 2 or 3 hours following that noontime report, I saw a transformation of the American people in New York City as elsewhere. They were screaming, trying to get enlisted in the army to defend the United States. And that was not the case in the day or so before the Pearl Harbor event. Now, the problem is, I'm not looking for a Pearl Harbor-like event right now. But the problem here is the lack of competent leadership from leading centers, people in government, as in the Senate, for example, in particular, who know this stuff. They know it, but they're not doing a damn thing about it because they don't think it's safe, politically safe for them to do it. That is a result of the demoralization of our population over 3 generations, that is among adults, from the killing of Kennedy, and especially from the experience of the launching of the actual prolonged Indochina War. But we have been going through war.
I understand, sir. So what is the time frame? I mean, there's a big awakening happening, but it's not coordinated. You know, the Congress has the lowest approval rating. Obama's unpopular. But it doesn't matter what we want or makes sense. You know, 70+% don't want all these wars. They just keep going forward. So what do you see happening if the British puppet, the globalist puppet, Obama, is not removed?
Well, what you've got now, the problem is you have no guts, especially represented by all of the Republican candidates and the one and plus minus the Democratic candidate. If you have that list of candidates, presidential candidates, or pre-candidates, this nation is demoralized. That kind of electing that kind of junk to be the leading candidates for the direct election? You do that? You tolerate that? You tolerate these clowns?
Well, why don't the banksters, centered in and around London, you know, as you say, why do they want us so demoralized? I mean, I guess so that we follow every order.
Right. They want the folks. They were going to intend to reduce the population of the United States, among other places, you know. You don't think we're going to come out of this as spectators to this great war?
No.
We are among the targeted victims of this war. And if we can't...
Let's explain. The British play everybody off against each other. See, people think of it as you pick one side or the other. No, think about the third position of the group manipulating you. That's what the Rothschilds have always done. You've written about them. They're all supporting this.
And who, in the end, killed himself when he was losing the case at that point. But in this case, what's happening is the British are in control of this thing, and Obama's nothing but a British puppet. He's also insane. And its significance is that as President of the United States, with his insanity and the power he's using with the direction of the British, he could cause world in thermonuclear warfare that exists on this planet. Without the United States under control of the British, under Obama's control, that could not happen. Therefore, we have to get Obama out, because the most likely way to save this nation, if we continue to tolerate Obama, if he's continued to be president, they're not going to wait for the next election of the United States. The danger comes now, War III, thermonuclear World War III. So if we don't remove him from power, as it stands now, here we got two options. You have to think of what's the British option. The British option is if they can't win it any other way, they are now prepared to order through the President of the United States the launching as of our submarine fleet in the Pacific, to launch the greatest capability to use the threat, as Hitler did in Germany to the Germans, to use the threat.
Mr. LaRouche, stay there. That was a short segment. Long one coming up. This is key. That's what I wanted to ask you when we get back. Why are they openly announcing that they're moving most of the forces to diminish the Chinese? The Chinese, as you know, their president has now said, prepare for war with the United States. Incredible, when they hold most of our debt.
We don't know the exact date, but we're approached that point. Now, two things are, the British have two objectives. Now, the British know what, command knows exactly what they're doing when they're prompting the United States to unleash forces such as the submarine thermonuclear capability in the Pacific and also in the Atlantic. And they know what they're doing. They are obviously not anticipating a pleasant trip with that. They would prefer